So, how are you, Dan?
I'm good. I'm good. I can't really complain. I mean, I complain about a few things if you like, but I'm guessing you don't want me to.
Hey, complain as much as you want, man. I don't mind. It's all good. It's all good. So, how did you actually get into like radio? Did you play in bands or did you just start off with wanting to be in radio, or was it just by osmosis you got into it?
No, I never played in a band, but I did. I was told once I was born to be a bass player. I'm not quite
Oh,
sure.
right.
I'm
Right.
not quite sure how to take that. I do love the bass, but no, no, never played in the band. I just always loved music
Mm.
from being a kid, and then I discovered radio in my teens, specifically Dave Fanning and John Peel. Whenever I could manage to tune in
Hmm.
on my very old radio, I'm still not quite sure how I managed it. I have a feeling I might have heard his show via a pirate radio that rebroadcasted or something like that. But anyway, so I listened
Right.
to those and others, and I just got really kind of into it. But my idea initially was I wanted to be one of the people in the background because I would have never had the confidence to kind of like talk in front of people or have people listening to what I was saying. You know, it would have that idea would have terrified me. So, but actually, as I went on, I kind of just went, well, why don't I at least I give it a go?
Mm.
So, I ended up getting into a course in what was Dunleary College of Art and Design, a radio course, and I kind of had a go at it. And I was a terrible presenter. I really was. It was awful at the start. But as with anything, you just you just persevere and just after a while you get decent at it,
Yeah.
and then it kind of all just kind of worked its way out from that. But I think like any of these things, it's perseverance, and if you have a real passion for something, that kind of helps too, doesn't it?
Mm. Mm. Would you say you're kind of shy, or because I find I'm a bit of a shy person, and doing kind of podcasts is good. It kind of brings you out of your, not shyness, but you get more kind of conditioned to talking to people in a good way, if that makes any sense.
I think everyone has shyness in them in some sort of a way.
Yeah.
It's some people are very visibly shy when you first meet them, and others are just others are just kind of quiet in general. But I mean, yeah, I would be kind of shy enough. I mean, if you think about it, like radio, the traditional radio anyway, is someone sitting in a room talking, no kind of cameras around. I know it's kind of changed now,
Yeah.
but that's kind of like I remember thinking kind of, oh, this is made for me. No one can see me, they can hear me, but I can kind of I can deal with that now.
Yeah.
But this is just made for me. Like this is perfect. So yeah, I think I'm shy and I can be socially awkward, but you know we all can to a certain extent. I think if you're honest with yourself, you kind of say, yeah, there's the odd faux pas that flies out of my mouth.
Yeah. Did you find it odd with the cameras in the studio now? Because there used to be nothing, and you could just kind of probably put your feet up, chill out.
Well, I mean, for quite a long time there was the webcam, and
Oh, right, right.
that was just a stationary camera in front of you, not too dissimilar to this. And invariably, if not a whole lot is happening during your show, let's say you don't have a whole stream of guests coming in, there aren't any visual accompaniments or stuff like that. It's just literally looking at you, scratching your nose, and kind of occasionally looking over to see, oh, how much time is left in that track.
Yeah.
So it's I was kind of used to that a little bit, and then. But no, it doesn't bother me too much. Now, I don't have the cameras on all that often for that reason, because
Okay.
generally it's me sometimes as guest, but generally there's not really a whole lot going on. And it's kind of like if you don't have a whole lot going on, why have your cameras on?
Yeah, yeah. It's like a bit voyeuristic, isn't it? Some just a dude watching you sitting down playing music.
I don't know what it is, but I just don't have them on that much.
Yeah. What kind of music did you listen to growing up?
I I would have listened to the usual kind of pop stuff that was kind of on daytime radio, on TV that I would have heard, on Top of the Pops that I would have watched. And then when I hit my early teens, my sister's a few years older than me, would have been really into music, still is actually. And I would have heard all this strange music through the wall from her room, going, "What's that? Just
Yeah.
that's terrible." And then I listened a bit more, going, "Oh, actually, no, that's pretty good." And then around that time, I would have discovered Dave Fanning and things like that. And then it was the start of MTV. Maybe not the start of MTV, but it was MTV was on. I don't think we had that for very long. I probably bothered all my friends that live nearby to call around and watch it. So yeah, that was the kind of, that's how the whole world of the music as I would know it and love it now kind of entered my little world at the time.
Yeah. Do you listen to music in a different way because you're presenting music, if you know what I mean? You're showing it to people. Do you listen in a different way than you would have as opposed to just enjoying it, music?
Well, I still enjoy it, but now I kind of now and a lot of people that work in any sort of media that schedules things, and I know that sounds very regimented, but I by definition I do, because I open with a certain track, I might close an hour with a certain track, and there's sometimes I'm listening to things and went, do you know, that would sound really well after that Soulwax remix of Fontaine's DC Hero's Death. I'll make a note of that now.
Yeah.
But there is a bit of that. But sometimes I would just say, no, I'm just going to sit down and I'm not going to listen to this for any other purpose than this is just for me to enjoy. And a lot of the time you might be making your dinner, you might be making your lunch, I don't know what, and that's the time that I find that's really good to do that you're listening for no other reason than just absolutely getting a little bit lost in it. And I know we're entering real anorak territory and all that, but so be it.
That's it, man. I think though people can relate to that when someone's being genuine and they're putting out what they want to do. I think people kind of, they relate to it more and they're invested in it, and they know that that's the music you like. So I think that's a good thing, and I think it draws people towards your show.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. I mean, I don't know what would draw people towards my show. I kind of, when I think about it, when people get in touch, I can kind of figure out if they're by the reference points of roughly what age they are. Roughly, you can be wrong sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know. I mean, I don't think about it a huge amount about why someone might listen to my show in particular. I think people who just like music, if they're listening to podcasts, if they're listening to Spotify, Deezer, or whatever, they're just listening because they like music. And sometimes I guess people with radio, they listen to kind of keep them company, because there's a human voice there that you don't necessarily get on other formats. So what you do, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. How do you think Spotify's changed the music business? For the better, for the good, or worse? I think it's both, probably.
It probably is. I mean, it's made music much more readily available to people, which has got to be a good thing. I know there's a big debate about how much they pay and stuff like that, and things like that. But I think will always try and look on the positive side of things where I can, and the positives I look for any sort of streaming services. They're sometimes introducing music to people that wouldn't have come across it ordinarily. And ordinarily this person might go and see them, they might go and buy a t-shirt, they might go and buy a vinyl or whatever from this band. So the positive side of my mind would say, you've got to look at that side of things. You can go down lots of other debates about stuff like that, but let's keep positive.
Yeah, I find so much music through Spotify. The only problem I find is that sometimes if you've too much choice, it's actually a bad thing. You go on Netflix. Well, I know I do. When I go on Netflix and there's like so much stuff to watch, and I scroll down, I end up watching nothing. Sometimes I find when you just too much, our brains can't kind of comprehend that. When I was a kid, I'd have one album, I could afford one album, so I'd listen to that album to death, and you kind of get more immersed in it that way than opposed to having everything you ever wanted at your fingertips.
Yeah, there is a bit of that. I mean, I do think that you know, years ago, like what you said there, I did listen to things a lot more. I
Hmm.
mean, I knew the albums I loved. I really knew I could tell you their track listing backwards. Where now, you know, there's albums, EPs, and stuff like that that I love. But I wouldn't necessarily know the track listing. I certainly wouldn't remember the track listing if you
Yeah,
said, "Okay, what's track number 7 on you know Kitchen Sink by Nadine
yeah,
Shah," which is a brilliant album, by the way. I'd be there going, "I'm not sure, actually."
yeah.
Um, but I do think as well with the way life has gone and the way life has changed over the last number of decades, that even big songs are popular for a shorter period of time because people move on much quicker,
Hmm.
and that's not necessarily just confined to music. That's confined to just nearly everything in life, if you look at it that way.
It's kind of gone back to like the 50s in a lot of ways. You know, they had just those singles, and it was a single-driven market, as opposed to when the 60s and Beatles and Dylan and all them started bringing out albums. That's when the album kind of came into a more its own.
Yeah, I guess so. And I never really thought of it that way. But I mean, my thing is, and I've said this for years, I'm not kind of like, I wouldn't dismiss any artist just because they haven't released an album. I'm not a dinosaur that says,
Right.
oh, if you haven't released an album, you're not a proper artist, or you haven't even released 3, or you're not a proper artist. I just kind of like the fact if I like an artist, it's great to be able to listen to as much of their stuff as you can. And I mean, an album is what, like 11, 12 songs, so great. But if
Mm.
they haven't and they've released you know, 10 just standalone singles, so be it. That's great too.
Yeah, and it's great even in like the audio world, because you know, years ago you had to go into a studio and it cost a lot of money to record. And now you can make things in your bedroom on good equipment if you know what you're doing as well.
Yeah.
It's quite amazing.
If you have a fancy studio like yours in the background,
Hey,
it's not a bother, you know.
it's only fancy since about a week ago. I painted it and everything and put up all my things. So it's getting there. It's getting there.
Well, it looks real. I'd say you have a couch over there with
No,
a
I
table.
don't. I don't. I have a bass amp and it looks better here. I've made it look better. I've made it look better.
It looks fantastic. Really,
Oh, thank you,
congratulations.
man. Thank you. It took me a while. I was doing the old painting it grey and all that stuff. So
Is that a cat mask you have up there in the background?
no,
What
it's a cat pillow.
a cat pillow?
Yeah,
Right.
man.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite cool. I kind of thought it looked a bit freaky and yeah, bit weird.
Okay.
Bit weird.
I've never
Yeah.
come across a cat pillow before, but
No,
there you go.
I seen it in that what you call it, Mr. Price. I was like, oh man, I gotta get that stuff. I like all those kind of little shitty things that you don't need but you do need, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's a human. Is it? I don't know. It's a human condition, a human failing, but it's human anyway.
Yeah, it's everything, isn't it? What record when you were younger? Because I know I have records that kind of just that stood out to you and just kind of you had that kind of oh my god moment.
There's loads. I mean, I suppose one of the ones that really stood out to me. I remember being in school and the day Acton Baby by U2 was released. And one of the guys, we weren't allowed down to the, we had to stay in the school grounds essentially.
Mhm.
As far as I remember, we had to. And I think that's the case. I can't remember now. But anyway, one of the guys had crept out and gone to a record shop somewhere nearby. And he brought it back, a tape of Acton
Right.
Baby, or maybe it was a CD, I can't remember. But we listened to it. And I remember going, my God. And then literally saving up and getting a copy of it myself and just listening to it. I mean, I had obviously known who U2 were,
Mhm.
but this was completely different. This is kind of like they'd done a David Bowie on it. They'd been one thing and then they'd not dismissed that, but they just moved on and changed into something really different and something that's interesting in a completely different way. And that really blew my mind. And the whole Zoo TV thing that went with that. I remember going to see that. That was one of the first gigs I'd ever been to. And that just absolutely, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
and there's others like Nirvana's Nevermind really was a really, really big one as well. So I mean, other things like maybe not albums, but I heard tracks by Public Enemy as a young teenager, and that was like, oh, wow, who are these guys? And Nana Cherry, people like that I just thought these guys are amazing.
Yeah. What was it like when Nirvana came out? Because I was still like a kid. I wasn't old enough to kind of remember Nirvana. You know, I knew after the fact. I was like, "Oh my god, he's dead!" You know, as I got older. So it was it was so exciting. It was kind of like Beatles almost kind of vibe.
Well, I don't know. I suppose I was perfect age. I was in my teens. That I don't like a lot of people saying, "Oh yeah, I remember Bleach, the first album." I went to see them with Sonic Youth, and lots of people did go and see them with Sonic Youth when they came to Ireland. I didn't. I discovered Nirvana when they released "Smells Like Teen Spirit." Right. So there you go. There's honesty for you. I'm not going to say I knew who they were beforehand. I didn't. But I do remember hearing that song. I do remember buying Nevermind, and I remember being absolutely blown away by it because it was just something different. I think a lot of the stuff that I'd heard before that, rock stuff, was certainly from the big bands was more kind of commercial sounding. I mean, and this was just something that was a bit grittier and a little bit more real that I felt related to me. Or maybe it didn't relate to me, but in my young mind at the time, I felt it did.
Yeah.
I think when you're there at the time, you don't necessarily think this is something really iconic that we'll talk about in years to come. You don't think of it that way.
Yeah.
So I certainly wasn't thinking. I was just thinking this is really good. And then, you know, you discover all those other bands that came along with them, all of which were different, like Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Mudhoney, L7. They're all very, very, very different bands, but they all tend to get, you know, categorized in the one thing. But that was brilliant. And I'd still listen to some of them. Not all the time, but it's, you know, I always say to kind of people, you know, it's great to be always looking for new music, but there's this wonderful thing called the past where lots of interesting things happen. So don't disregard it.
No. I always loved the Jesus Lizard. I didn't think they got enough due. Thought they were a badass band. Really visceral, you know?
Yeah, I mean, they have a great song called Trefonation, which is... it's just got a outrageously catchy bass line. Just play that. Thanks for putting that back in my head.
Good stuff. Actually, in Neutro, I love that. I like that more than Nevermind because that just had this kind of ugliness to it that I thought was just amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I think around that time, I'd probably just got too much of Nirvana for a little bit. So I remember listening to the album, loving it, but I think it was just like, okay, they're everywhere. Even though I love what they do, I think I just need to take a step back from this and listen to something else. And I mean, around that time, I would have like through some of my friends who got really into kind of electronic music and hip hop, and I would have started listening to that a little bit too. So although I listened to that album a lot and I love it, I think I do remember being around the time going, okay, this is just too much for a little bit for me. It's like kind of Oasis a few years later. Great bands, brilliant albums. You know, some of them I absolutely love, but it did get to a point where I'm going, okay, this is saturation point for me. I'm gonna just go and have a listen to something else. I suppose again around In Utero, I would have discovered Loveless by My Bloody Valentine.
Just about to say that.
And again, I was a few years late on that one, but it was it's still an album that it kind of blows my mind when I listen to it. The enormity and the brilliance of it.
Yeah, me too. It's like it sounds like Strawberries. I know that sounds like a weird thing to say, but it's also swirly and colorful, and you get lost. It's like for me, it's like a hypnotic kind of painting, if you know what I
mean. Yeah, maybe less than next time. I'm going to think of Strawberries next time I listen to it. I'll see. Oh, he's right. He's right.
I've synesthesia, so I always talk about music with colors, which is a bit weird, but it is what it is.
No, it's not at all. Not at all. It's whatever you want. It's I'm a complete anorak when it comes to music.
Yeah. Are you big
Guilty.
are you a big vinyl collector? Or you still buy?
No,
No.
no. I mean, I just like listening to music whatever way I can. I do have vinyl. I don't have a massive collection of it. I really don't. Not compared to some people. But no, I still have CDs. Like, I mean, as long as I can listen to it, it doesn't really matter. I did bring some down here with me because invariably,
Brilliant.
when somebody asks you about albums, I sometimes blank on what you love. So hang on. Here's Nadine Shah from last year, Kitchen Sink. That's a brilliant album.
Check that out.
What's this from 2019? When I Wake Up, Maverick Sabre. Great album too. The hugely overlooked 1998 album from Ash, which is a brilliant album. I love that. I love the sound of it. From what year was this? Santi Gold, the second album. This was 2012. It's a great album as well. There's a bit of a shine in it. But
It is a shine.
Just from a couple of weeks ago, just one of the best things I've heard in a long time. The new Bicep album.
Oh wow, that's a cool cover.
Isles, yeah, it's just an absolutely stunning piece of work. Brilliant band that released one album and then broke up. Queen Z. This came out, when was this? 2019.
What's that like? What kind of music is Queen Z?
Kind of wonderful big guitar noise. There's a great, if you want to have a listen, check out Boy first. That's one of the tracks on it, and then work your way from there. Let's see, what year was this? It was 2019. Yeah, 2019. And then this one, yeah, you got to come back to this one from MIA.
Oh, which is savage record.
Just an absolute work of brilliance. But anyway, that's enough of my gushing. There's lots of other ones too. So
I'm still a CD man. I have loads of vinyl, but I still love CDs. I think CDs get a hard knock.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, look, does it really matter as long as you can listen to what you really want to listen to?
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I'm not too mad on cassettes anymore. I find them fiddly and a bit, and they're nice and all that, but I just don't find them as handy as listen to other things.
It drove me daft when I was a kid, forwarding songs and stuff like that. But I used to get so lazy to forward the songs because my batteries would go in me Walkman. I'd just be like, that was such a burn when your batteries and you're like, no man, no.
I never learned the lesson. I'd always buy cheap batteries that wouldn't last very long, and then it was like you'd be on the bus going somewhere and you'd get halfway through side B and it's like, and you go, oh, no.
I know. There's the pain of that. I actually loved mini discs. I had a mini disc player. I thought they were fantastic.
I think I still have a mini disc player somewhere. I only ever had one mini disc album though.
Right.
I don't know why they didn't kind of take off a little bit more than they did.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were kind of handy in their own way.
I got the recordable one, so you could record off the radio. I shouldn't say that, but you could record off the radio and record off like anything. You can plug it into the back of your TV and record off MTV2 and stuff like that. I thought they were really handy. It probably, in hindsight, they probably sounded terrible recording off that. But when you're a kid, you kind of don't care. You're just immersed. Sound quality doesn't really come into your brain when you're a kid.
Look, I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's just a case of, again, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but as long as you can listen to something that you really want to listen to and it makes you feel good or whatever way you want it to make you feel, there you go.
Are you listening to more music or less music during the lockdown? Or has it changed the way you've listened to music?
I don't know. I mean, I'm always listening to music. I suppose I listen quite a lot anyway. So am I listening to more? I probably listen to around the same amount.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's changed how I listen. Maybe it's made me kind of kind of listened to a few things that I haven't listened to in quite some time. And I'm not necessarily talking about like things from 15 years ago. I'm talking about stuff from maybe a couple of years ago that I listened to a lot. And I'm kind of going back to like Maverick Sabre, actually. That's an album I listened to quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. But I suppose it's just being around the house a little bit more. You're not out, you do have more time to do it. As everyone knows, when you're home, you'll always find something to do to distract yourself, or that you should be doing that you've been putting off for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So,
were you never tempted to pick up an instrument and go, I'll give this an old bash?
no.
Really?
No, I don't understand how music is made. I don't. I no.
Really?
And I don't. I don't understand how it's made. It's all, and I've said this loads of times. The idea that someone can have just kind of an idea in their head of a tune or a lyric or whatever it is, and then it can somehow transform into something that you could have a room full of people, an arena full of people gone absolutely apeshit to it, is magic to me. And don't ever tell me how that happens. I'm sure it's individual and all that. It's very different, but I never want to know, because it is just magic. And after years of being into music, still not understanding that, and because it's all a big kind of magic thing, I don't want that to change. That's fantastic. That's part of the mystique of it, and the mystique of things is really important, because if you understand things too much, you'll scrutinize everything. So me not knowing is great. I think it can be as much as, let's say someone who's a musician that can know, I know how they did that and did that and did that, and that's great. That might work for them. But for me, not knowing and it all being a big kind of mystery is perfect.
Yeah, I get, and that's kind of a thing that I find. I mean, social media is good for musicians, but it has taken a lot of mystique away from artists. Like, I remember years ago, I wouldn't know a lot about loads of stuff. I'd have to buy a magazine or something, and now I know who they're dating, where they're going, like that. I think it's taken away, like Bowie, for example. That dude was still mysterious until he died. But now, I wonder if Bowie was around, would we know everything we could about them? And I kind of don't really want to know everything I can about people now. I'm like, no, I just kind of want to know what their music, if you know what I mean.
Well, you can still like, I mean, I don't know who anyone's dating, to be honest. I'm obviously looking at the wrong posts.
I don't know what feeds I'm getting.
but I kind of pick and choose what I read. If there's certain things I kind of look at, oh, okay, all right, I wouldn't ordinarily read that, but I started, so I'll finish, or maybe I won't. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can switch off from that if you want. I think it just takes a bit of discipline. Sometimes you just have to go, if it's your phone, just put it away for a little bit.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be brilliant at that, but I have to say to myself, just put it down. You don't need to be doing that now.
Yeah.
But I still don't. This, like, acts that I would, like Queen Z, for example, which I showed you there. I have no idea what they look like.
That's cool.
I'm sure I've seen pictures of them, but I can't think of what they look like. And there's lots of acts that I don't know what they look like either.
Yeah.
If I thought about it, I'd go like Working Men's Club, brilliant album last year. I don't think I know what they look like, and I played them quite a bit. Yeah, I can't picture them. So it changes things as much as maybe not as much as we all think.
I'm reading a really good book at the moment about Warner Brothers, about the whole start of Warner Brothers. It's an amazing book, just how it started. You probably find it interesting, actually. It's just the way the labels, Warner owned, bought Reprise from Sinatra, and then Reprise was this. I won't go into it anyways. I'm probably bored shit.
No, I mean, I used to know which label was a subsidiary of what, and this and that and this. Now I suppose in some ways it could be easier now, but I don't. I guess I had more time to think about things like that. Like certainly in my very early 20s, I would have looked at what record companies own what. I think that might have gone too far down the anarchy route. But yeah, books are great because, I mean, music books are, well, books in general are fantastic. But
Agreed.
music books are fantastic. I'm reading this by Mark Lanigan at the moment, which is
Oh wow,
great, actually. He's a fascinating man and a brilliant
Screaming Trees.
Screaming Trees, Queens of the Stone Age. He collaborated with Soul Savers, Isabel Campbell, some amazing solo stuff. The Mark Lanigan band are outstanding. One of my favorite memories from festivals was Mark Lanigan band playing. I think it was 2011. He was touring the outstanding Blues Funeral album, which is yeah. But it was he is amazing, and his band are just fantastic musicians. But it was just one of those. I was standing there going, please don't let this pass really quickly, because I'm just so engrossed and blown away by this. I just want it to not end in like that, you know. I just love this.
Yeah.
And he's just a fascinating guy. I interviewed him once and it lasted around 5 minutes. And, you know, you could say, oh, was he short? Was his answers? Some he was, but it was one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. Just a fascinating, outrageously talented man. And even after all the years that he's been in music, I don't think he knows how talented he is, which is lovely.
Have you ever interviewed Brian Wilson? Because he's a mono answer.
No, I did see him. Get out of his car at an Electric Picnic, going up on stage, which I thought, wow, that's Brian Wilson.
I know, wow. Man. I could have met him, and I was just like, nah, man, I don't want to meet Brian Wilson. I will leave that poor guy alone. He doesn't want to be meeting, you know, because he meets so many people, and you know, that kind of way.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose when you're that famous, but you know, I couldn't. I don't know what it would be like. I'd imagine it would be amazing in some ways, and terribly mundane and frustrating in others, that you couldn't just walk down the street and be left alone. And I think there's something to be said for anonymity. You know, it's
it's one thing that kind of annoys me. I always think where Brian would have went. I'm a huge Beach Boys fan, so for me, I kind of read everything about the Beach Boys and Brian Wilson. So I always kind of like, man, where would he have went after Smile and all that kind of stuff? I know it's always wondering, but I always find those kind of things fascinating to me. You're kind of like, would he have done like a heavy record, or would he have gone, you know, I just find that kind of interesting.
Yeah, I don't know a huge amount about the Beach Boys. I know the really obvious stuff, and then I know enough when they come up in conversation to be quiet and listen. So
yeah. Have you listened to Smile?
Not recently, but I will after this.
When I first got into the Beach Boys, I kind of got into Pet Sounds. So then I retroactively went back to all their surf stuff, and I was like, what the fuck? You know, I like it, but it was so left field of what they were doing. That was my first experience of listening to Pet Sounds was because of Dave Fanning. He had that show on RT and on Sunday. What was that show called?
2TV.
2TV, that's the one. And he was saying Brian Wilson's a producer, and they go on the road and play, and then he played I Just Wasn't Made for These Times, and I was like, whoa, what the hell was that, man? I was like, it totally blew my mind. And then I found out about all the mythology, and when you're younger, you know, you get into things so much that it opens up the music in more of a expansive way. And for me, I'm kind of like that anyways. If I get into something, I kind of trip on it a bit, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose there's so many, like, you could kind of throw out loads of different music, you know, that kind of really hit you on a kind of profound level. Like, I mean, I suppose 20 years ago? It is 20 years ago that Stories from the City, Stories from the Sea, PJ Harvey came out. I still actually just stop what I'm doing when I hear stuff from that. It's just a work of absolute brilliance. And that it's great when you come across something like those albums that are so good, like those songs, like those pieces of music that are so good, that just make you kind of go, wow, this is just incredible. Like Blood Flow from Grand Brothers. There's an amazing piece of music. I don't even call it a song. It's just a piece of music. It's just a sweeping, beautiful, outrageously good piece of music.
Do you like Prefab Sprout and stuff like that?
I don't know a huge amount about them, but I know some songs. I probably would if I listened to them a whole lot more.
He did a really great record. It's like a neoclassical record. It's really interesting. He had hearing problems and stuff like that. And when he did it, he took all like little snippets from radio shows and put them into like classical music and stuff like that. It's a really like meditative piece of music. It's called I Troll the Megahertz. I think they re-released it again about last year under the Prefab Sprout name, but he had put it out under Paddy McAloon. It's really good. It's really
I
good.
I don't know it. I don't know.
I think you would like it. It's very.
There's another one. Smile at that.
But Steve Reich, so some parts like that. It's got kind of. I just love it. I think it's one of those. Those albums that go under the radar, and it's just one of those kind of like a lot of early Talk. I think they've become a lot bigger now than they were when I first started listening to Spirit of Eden and stuff like that. A great band too. And Laughingstock came out during the same year as Loveless, I think, 91, wasn't it?
91. All those years, all those albums are 30 years old. Loveless, Acton Baby, Nevermind, the Teenage Fan Club. Which one? It's not Grand Prix. It's the Bandwagon-esque. Screamadelica, all those.
Wow. I seen that post you put up on Instagram. I was like, whoa, I didn't realize there was that many records. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, it was just that year. And I mean, you think about, some of the Irish albums that came out that year. Power Dreams, Immigrants and Me. No, that was the year before, actually. That was 1990, wasn't it? That was a great album. Acton Baby that I've gone on about already, which is just amazing. But yeah, Loveless is one of those, is probably one of the most special from that time. Yeah. It just changed so much in music, and the influence, you can still hear it now. You can hear it in so many acts.
Yeah.
And for to do that all this time later, because the world is such a different place now. So certainly at the moment it is really incredible.
Yeah, you can even hear it in like the Pumpkins. They use that kind of the guitar work where it's drone-esque and stuff like that. I think Billy Corgan even said that he was inspired by that in some places. I was like, well,
yeah, I think he is a fan. I think he is a fan.
I think everyone's a fan. I love that soundtrack they did Kevin did to Lost in Translation. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, City Girl was a great track from that.
Yeah, man, fucking amazing. Do you listen to a lot of jazz or anything like that, or no?
No. I don't know much about jazz at all.
Oh man, I'm a jazz head.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe it's something jazz and classical contemporary stuff like that. I just don't know that much about. Maybe that's something I'll get really into in time, or maybe not. But I don't know anything about it.
Oh, I did a podcast with a guy who he sells Beatle records. He's a lot of Beatles, like rare Beatle records, and we were talking about jazz, and he said he didn't get into jazz, so he said, I'll send you something for Christmas. So he sent me a stereo that's really like rare of Magical Mystery Tour, which is probably my favorite Beatles record, and I sent him a jazz record, and then he's starting to get into jazz now. So it's kind of, I think when you get a record, it's like anything, you find that one thing that you gel to and you're like, holy shit, it opens up like this wormhole for you, and you just go, music's like that anyways, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, you do. You can just kind of, what do they say? You go down a rabbit hole.
That's it.
I do that a lot on YouTube. It's like, oh, hang on. I didn't know that happened. Or, I haven't heard that in ages, or I haven't seen that in ages. It's just like suddenly, like 2 hours later, it's like, whoops.
Yeah, YouTube is mad for that, isn't it? You just go on these, you're just like, oh my God, 3 o'clock in the morning, man, what am I doing? I'm just looking.
Yeah, there is a bit of that, but that's great though. You just to kind of get lost in something for a little bit.
Yeah. Do you find it's a lot more Irish bands are getting more respect now than before?
Well, I guess in the 90s, when I would have started really getting into music in a really big way, there wasn't a huge amount of success. There was the obvious ones like Sinead O'Connor, the Cranberries, U2, and there was lots of others like the Chieftains and Enya and Planet and stuff like that who were doing amazingly well. But from a kind of an alternative like electronic and rock point of view, there wasn't a huge amount of bands really breaking through. But now there in the last number of years there's been quite a lot.
Mm.
And that's great. And I mean, it does draw attention to others. Like if one band or one artist starts doing well, you know, people that wouldn't ordinarily go looking for more or to see what else is there, they do that. So that's obviously a good thing too.
Yeah, my friend had a really cool record label. Did you ever hear Lazy Bird? It was like an electronic record label. One of my mates,
Yes,
Seamus.
yeah,
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 Seamus. He runs that record label. I don't think it's still going, but he had some really interesting artists on that label. He Checkerboard,
yeah.
yeah.
John Lambert. Yeah.
Very
I know
talented
John.
guy.
Yeah, really talented guy. Haven't seen him in years, actually. I'll be
Right.
looking. Hiya, John.
Hey, John, what's up? Yeah, I find it interesting looking back at bands going, you know, some bands I thought would be big, would go bigger. Like I know JJ72 were bigger at the time, but I thought they were going to get really big. And just think that the second album syndrome.
There's just the second album. I think it's brilliant. It's
I liked it. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, Eye to Sky. It's great. They recorded a third album as well, but it never got released. But there's other brilliant records. Like when you think about Irish music, there's like Horse Drawn Wishes, Roller Skate Skinny, which is an outstanding album. That's like 25 years old this year. There's like Rusangano Family, Let the Dead Bury the Dead. For me, that if you were to ask me over the last decade or a little bit more, what's my favorite album, Irish album, it would probably be that one. It's just a piece of absolute brilliance. But in my mind, how that didn't go on to become certainly an international success, I'm puzzled by that. But I think you know the guys are gone on to do lots of other things, and their talent is you can't help but notice it. You know, Morley, and God knows, working with Denise Chyla, it's great to see. I'd love if My Name Is John it gets to release stuff. I'm sure he will, because he's a band are the sum of their parts, and Rusangano, the three elements in that band were just incredible together. I mean, I remember seeing them at the Eurosonic Festival a number of years ago. And it was crazy. I remember just standing there going, yes, it's happening. This is just great, but that album is brilliant.
Oh, that's cool, man. They won the Choice Prize, didn't they?
Yes, 2016.
26. Jeez, man, I thought that was only like 2 years ago. My brain is time is going too quick.
Well, they won for Irish Album of the Year 2016, but it was March of 2017 that it happened.
Right. Okay. I'm not getting that old. That's good. What's your passions outside music? Because I know you're so immersed in music. You probably
Yeah, I used to have kind of a lot more, but I mean, life just gets busy. I kind of like getting out and about. I like. I used to love playing tennis, but I
Me too, man.
I've played in a very long time. But I like just getting out. I like kind of getting out for a run, a walk, or whatever, stuff like that. I used to be a mad wrestling fan up until around maybe 10 or 15 years ago. I used to be absolutely mad about this.
I'll show you something. I don't know. Can you see up there? There's a War is War. Yeah. You should watch the MMA. UFC, man.
Yeah, I don't watch it so much now because I don't have the channel. I don't have the channels anymore, but the channel it's on. But I did watch that a lot, actually. But I started watching. There's a few documentaries.
The Vice ones.
Yeah, they're brilliant. I started watching a few of them, and there's one on Bret Hart. There was one who I got to interview him around 10, 11 years ago, and he was fascinating. He was a really interesting guy, really
Book
nice
is
fellow
amazing.
too. His book is amazing. He was on a kind of essentially a book tour, and he was in Ireland, and it's the only person I've really got starstruck for a minute. And I think he noticed, and he's really nice about it. And for the first couple of minutes, I didn't look him in the eye, and he was really nice. He was a really interesting, very smart guy, very bright guy, very knowledgeable about all sorts of things. Because people think about you know wrestlers, oh, they're just a big bunch of thicks, but not the case.
No.
That's a stereotype.
For sure.
So yeah, I used to be crazy into that for a very long time, and things pass. You just go, yeah, I don't watch it anymore, and I don't think I probably would now. So
No, it's not as good as it was. The Attitude Era, man.
that's the
I
trap
know,
you fall into.
I know, man. It is though. It is though. I remember actually about probably 2011, 2010, 2011. Bret Hart came over to Ireland, and he was kind of doing stuff for another promotion, and they had a kind of thing in Castle Bar. And my grandmother, I used to go in to watch wrestling with my grandmother every Friday because she was kind of alone, and we'd watch the old wrestling. And anyways, we all went up to see this thing where Bret Hart was. He was just like a special enforcer, And afterwards, my mother went up to them and was like, "Can we meet Bret Hart?" I'm like, "Ma'am, don't be saying anything." And then, of course, he said, "Okay." And he came down all the way from his room, and he said, "I couldn't not meet someone who's an older lady and my fan," and took a picture with us. And she was just so delighted. And I accidentally chopped him on his chest because I said, "Oh, hey, man," and I hit him on the chest. Like, oh my God, I just slapped Bret Hart in his fucking chest. Like, oh my God. And he just looked at me like, "It's cool, man. It's cool." Just a lovely guy.
I think it was that time that when he was over that I would have interviewed him too. Yeah, just a really, really nice, really funny kind of, just a really sweet guy. And I mean, as a kid, I would have watched him and others, and I think that's probably why I was a little bit starstruck. It was like, I suddenly turned into a 10-year-old. Like, oh.
Bro, I had the same feeling. It's like that, like, oh my God, it's Bret Hart, man. Wow, Yeah, back in the day, though, it was good, man. I remember like Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, The Undertaker, all that vibe, man. That was cool,
Yeah, look, I'm sure it's cool. I'm sure it's cool now. I just don't know about it so much. So
yeah. I parried over to kind of UFC. Well, we watched UFC when we were kids, but I think more now I watch UFC, and he was.
Yeah. I mean, that was amazing. You kind of had people like Anderson Silva, obviously Ronda Rousey and Misha Tate were great as well. You just had, I think when Brock Lesnar went into it as well, it was just like, wow. But I don't have the channels anymore, so I don't, and I kind of a lot of the new guys and girls in it, I don't know them so well.
Yeah.
So but I've huge respect to the amount of work that goes into something like that, the level of concentration, the commitment and stuff like that. I know people say it's very violent, and well, yes, it is. By definition, it is. And you have to be a certain type of person who would have the mental conditioning and certainly physical conditioning to get into that. Because most of us wouldn't last a split second. I think if one of them looked at me in a strange way, I'd probably faint. So.
You want to see though, because I do jiu-jitsu. Well, not now because obviously but some guys would come in and they're like huge. And you'll see a smaller guy who's got high level jiu-jitsu will just take them apart. Yeah. It is just, when you're at that high level, some guy rolling with some of those guys, it's an art form because
of course it is.
It's a different IQ you're using.
I did jiu-jitsu very briefly.
Oh, did you? Nice.
Yeah, very briefly, and I kept injuring myself. It was just I'd never had injuries before. I just kept injuring myself.
Really?
I was clearly doing something wrong. The people who were teaching me were fantastic, really, really cool. I loved it, but I tore a ligament in my foot. I remember I was grappling with somebody and I heard a really loud pop, and the guy stopped and went, "Ooh, was that you?" And I went, "I'm not sure, actually." I'm not sure, but let's just keep going. And then it was only when I was driving home, I could feel my foot kind of swelling. I was like, going, oh no.
Oh no,
And
man.
I got into work later on, and I had to phone the doctor and say, I think I've broken my foot. I can't
No.
walk. So I
Yeah.
had to go there, and he goes, no, you've popped your ligament in your foot. It was extremely
Oh.
sore. So that was me out of action for, I think I was hobbling around for at least a month before I could kind of even do anything other like than hobble on it. So yeah, I've huge respect. I'd love to do more stuff like that, but just as you said at the moment, it's a little bit difficult. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's such a it's like you get in the zone when you do it, and you know you're vibing off people and you're meeting cool people, and I think a lot of people don't understand. You're not trying to hurt people. It's you
no,
know you're not at all. None of those guys like hurting people. It's just it's just a bit of art.
it is in a completely different way. And I think until you get in there and you are actually being shown how you do this, you can't appreciate the complexities and how easy these guys and the girls kind of can do it.
Hmm.
They can just look as though they're just slipping that way, but actually what they're doing, they've done 7 steps to get to that position, but they're so smooth in doing it. It's I'm just saying, hang on a second. You've had us practicing this thing. Well, there's 8 moves here, but you've just done it in a split second, and it looks like one movement, but it's not.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember just going, wow, this. And I'm sure if you went and did sambo,
Hmm.
kempo, what all any of the others, capoeira, they all have their own variations of that, and it's just when you're good at something, you make it look easy.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I'm sure, like, you look at Rory Gallagher, if you got to see him play back in the day, he makes it look easy, but actually it's just because he's brilliant. Or, you look at, I don't know, you could look at anyone who, like, look at, the Williams sisters, like, look at them playing tennis. They make it look easy because they're so good.
Hmm. Hmm. And I think people also, with being good at hard work, you still have to put in the work. And
Of
you're
course it
not,
is.
it's not like you just go up. You still have to put in the work. So it's a discipline thing, and it teaches you discipline. I think those kind
Yeah.
of things teach you discipline.
It's when you get to that level, it's natural ability with an awful lot of hard work and concentration and work that goes into it.
Mhm.
So, I don't think anything really comes just free to someone. I think you have to invest in it.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, whether it's you've got an amazing business mind or a sporting mind or whatever it is, artistic mind, you have to invest in it. You have to kind of work on it.
Well, we'll wrap this thing up. Geez, we've gone long.
No, I was
Sorry
just saying,
there.
thanks so much for having me. It's been great
Oh
chatting to you.
man, I
And
loved it.
I'm in awe of your fancy studio. I think you do have a couch, and you probably got snacks.
I have a sink there, man. Look, it's a fucking sink.
Okay, all right, okay.
It's not as fancy as it looks, trust me. It's my old bedroom.
Look, it looks pretty fancy to me. But look, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Great to speak to you.
Thank you so much for doing it. I really appreciate your time. I probably waffled on too much, man. I could talk for hours.
Not
So
at all. Not at
sorry
all.
about that. And
There's 2 of us in it. No need to apologize.
good man.
Waffler meets waffler. So
We'll have a wrestling podcast.
okay, fair enough.
That'd be cool. Hey, I'd be down for that if you want, for sure. Thank you again, Dan. And Dan, thanks very much for playing my music. I really appreciate that. That's so kind of you, man. Thank you very much. Every time, I really, really appreciate it, and I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man, and thank you very much for this.
Thank you. Thanks a million.
Have a great day. Talk to you soon, Dan.
You too. Bye.
Cheers, brother. Bye bye.